Welcome to the meeting. Yeah, first thing on the agenda is to hear from Casey and Zach.
Good evening. I'm Casey Leonard. I'm a partner on the audit engagement here with Zach Alvaire. He's a senior on the audit. We're going to be talking about the June 30, 2022 audit. A few years behind, so keep that in mind as we kind of talk about things here. Similar to what I've done in the past, I put together a little PowerPoint presentation. As I go through this, if you have any questions, please feel free to stop in at any point. Take a look at the first page. We have a summary of the audit results, so just kind of an overview of things. In terms of the opinion on the financial statements, the town received an unmodified opinion, which means they are fairly stated in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. Or it was a clean opinion, which is exactly what you want to see. In addition to the financial statement audit, we also performed an audit in accordance with government auditing standards, what we usually call a yellow book audit. So here we consider that the town's internal controls over the financial reporting process. So we look at all the procedures that are in place that help to ensure that the town is following its procedures. We also perform tests of the town's compliance with certain provisions of laws, regulations, contracts, and grant agreements. And in terms of that yellow book audit, we didn't have any material weaknesses, but we did have 3 significant deficiencies. Just kind of quickly go through those. So the first one had to do with segregation of duties. And this really has to do with the small staff size that the town has. So again, thinking back to 2022, the deputy treasurer is involved in many different functions. So back then, Angela was reconciling the bank accounts, she was preparing and posting journal entries, and she was maintaining the general ledger. In a perfect world, we could take those different functions, give them to different employees, you have better segregation of duties. What this means ultimately is that there's a greater risk of fraud and there's a greater risk of errors. Not that either of those have occurred, but as your auditor, I need to kind of give you a heads up that there's some risk here in having one individual do so many different things. Now, there are a few things that we do recommend. We recommend that management and the board review financial information on a regular basis. If you have any questions or any concerns, obviously raise those questions and those concerns. I would say 70% of my clients receive this comment year after year. It's really hard to get away from. You know, local governments in the state of Maine run pretty thin. And so it's a pretty common comment, but again, as your auditor, I need to tell you that there's some risk there. Then we had a significant deficiency related to segregation, purchasing controls. So we looked at a cash disbursements test, and when we did so, we noted 14 instances out of 40 in which purchase orders were approved after the transaction occurred. So purchase orders are supposed to show the pre-approval of a transaction. You want to make sure that you're, that it complies with your budget, that it follows the budget. And so when you have purchase orders that are occurring after transaction occurs, you're kind of shortcutting the process. So our recommendation is that all purchase orders be signed, approved prior to a transaction actually occurring. And then we also performed a payroll test, a payroll disbursements test, and in doing so, we noted kind of a handful of things. So first of all, there were multiple employees that didn't have documentation of their approved pay rate. For the employees that did have documentation, not all of the approved pay rates matched with what they were being paid. The town also did not keep documentation of timesheets for all employees, and for the timesheets that were present, not all timesheets were approved. And so our recommendation is that the town keep documentation of all pay rates for each employee and match the employees' approved pay rates with the payroll register after increases have occurred. We also recommend that all timesheets be present and approved before employees are paid. So kind of a few different things going on there. Then we also had kind of a general recommendation, wasn't considered a significant deficiency, but it related to journal entry review and approval. So currently, or at least as of 2022, there was an approval process for journal entries, and therefore no journal entries were approved. So it's our recommendation that the town implement a system of where journal entries are approved. Usually we recommend anything over $1,000 be approved by the town manager. So that's something else to consider going forward. Any questions on any of those?
I have a couple.
Certainly.
Which of these three significant deficiencies were significant deficiencies in your last audit?
I believe only the segregation of duties. I think the purchasing controls was an issue last year, and I think we escalated it. I think it was just kind of a common recommendation. I think it had been kind of a prevalent issue for a number of years. And I think the number of instances in which we saw that it wasn't being complied with kind of increased. I think probably last year there was a handful, maybe 4 or 5. We're up to 14 out of 40. So we kind of escalated it this year. The payroll one, I don't recall if that was there last year. I could take a look.
Could we get into a little more detail on the payroll one? We're talking about pay rates that.
Yeah, pay
don't
rates.
match.
We should get backup documentation for pay rates. For some employees, I think there were 3 employees, we didn't see anything. And then for the approved pay rates, they weren't matching with what employees were being paid. That was probably an instance in which, individuals did get a change in the rate of pay. But there wasn't signed documentation that we could look at to say that it was approved. There wasn't documentation. I don't think we had individuals that were being incorrectly paid. I think it was more of a matter of documentation.
Okay.
Yeah, and then the timesheets, we just weren't seeing timesheets for all employees. I think there was one individual where the timesheet didn't match with what that individual was paid, but it's probably just kind of a minor, and we kind of deem that as an isolated incident. But I do recall from the test that did occur.
How do we, how is that corrected, the purchasing controls and the payroll test?
I'll have to go back. So for all of these deficiencies and for the recommendations, management has to respond. And so that is in management's response. They have responded to those comments. Do not have that comment right in front of you right now, but it is in the report. I don't know, Justin, do you recall?
Yeah, so the purchasing controls, 2002 and before, Monmouth routinely attached purchase orders to all invoices, whether they never needed to have purchase orders or not. So during that transition, I believe there was some confusion, because you don't need a purchase order on top of an invoice. Like if you go to a store or something and you are authorized to purchase certain items, you don't know if it's small enough, you obviously don't need it. But if we had a $15 item that was purchased, a purchase order was routinely, we have these standard forms that were in a box, and all the employees stapled those to the front of all of them, even though they weren't truly purchase orders. So when we got away from that, there was some confusion about when they should be used, I think, because they were trained to do it on everything. So I believe there's a period of time here where some of these were stapled on the front and they should have been used and they weren't signed, so on and so forth. I think we agreed that we're going to get away from them when we didn't need them, and that moving forward, that the department heads were going to have to make sure that those were done according to the purchasing policy. I believe that's what we.
Yeah.
Something
Okay.
that,
Yes,
I may have been
correct.
paraphrasing or changed my wording, but I think is that fair? Okay.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, the other thing to keep in mind with a lot of these comments, things have changed pretty dramatically over the last few years, and that you've kind of outsourced a bunch of your accounting to Mark Roy and his team, and things may look dramatically different when we do our test for 23. I'm not totally sure if we've done it yet, but I would think things would change.
Okay.
Any other questions on,
And the journal entry review?
are you now approving those, Justin? Journal entries?
Yes, we started doing that from when you pointed it out,
Okay.
but it'll probably show up in our next audit too, but just
Yeah,
because
because of the lag.
of the lag and
Lag,
but
yeah.
yeah. So you'll probably see that one again, but we're doing it now.
If we take a look at page 3, we start to get into some of the financial results for the year. This first graph shows general fund equity. So if you take your total assets less your total liabilities and deferred inflows of resources, you're left with the equity position of the fund balance for the town. And we take fund balance and we're going to carve it up into different categories. And I'm just briefly going to describe what's included in each one of these. So first of all, you have non-spendable fund balance. That represents resources which can't be spent because they're not in a spendable form. Traditionally, this includes prepaid expenditures and inventory, and easily converted to cash, and so we have to put it into that non-spendable category. The town actually hasn't had any non-spendable fund balance since 2020. I think you had a prepaid expenditure back then. Restricted fund balance represents resources with constraints placed on their use externally, so these are amounts that have strings attached to them. And this specifically represents the fuel assistance reserve. Committed assigned fund balance represents resources that are constrained by the town's intent to be used for specific purposes. So these are amounts that the town is setting aside. And this includes amounts set aside to balance the following year budget, as well as capital reserves. And then unassigned fund balance is what remains after amounts are recognized in the other categories. It's essentially what's left over. And that increased by about $221,000 in 2022.
I was kind of surprised by the increase in the unassigned fund balance because we made a significant withdrawal from the unassigned fund balance to, I think it was during this fiscal year to.
Right, but remember, this is June 30, 22.
Yeah.
So you have to take all of that off of this if you're gonna. We took 600,000 out in 2023. And then we took,
2023, so
Yeah.
it's the following fiscal.
and then 200,000 the year after for the revaluation. So there's really about 800,000
It's been
used
taken out of the
Yeah.
unassigned. So
at this point.
today, then the unassigned fund balance would be in the neighborhood of 1.7 billion-ish.
Yes.
If we didn't, yeah, theoretically. right?
Assuming the revenues equal your expenditure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about the unassigned fund balance and what is typical for a town and what are the, municipalities that are like Monmouth, running for unassigned fund balances and what's
Sure.
reasonable?
Yeah, if you take a look at graph 6, kind of dive into that a little bit. So on graph 6, we have unassigned fund balances with percentage of budget. That's kind of the gold standard in terms of determining whether or not you have good unassigned fund balance. We generally recommend 1 to 2 months worth of expenditures, which is 8.3 to 16.7. Monmouth, as of June 30th, 2022, was at 24%. We had a very healthy, probably on the large side, unassigned fund balance. It sounds as though you guys have figured that out in 23 and 24 and scaled that back, ate a little bit of it up. 24 is definitely on the high side. I honestly can't say I've had a client that has been up over 20% in a while. It's not unforeseen, but I feel like a lot of my clients, they're closer to the digits or even the single digits. I'd rather see 24% than 1 or 2%, I can tell you that. But you're definitely, you're pretty high up there.
And the difference between 1 and 2 months, because what we've been advised in the past is 2 months.
Yeah, I mean, it depends.
What if we went to 1 month, what would the risk be? What would be the cost benefit for that?
The risk would be that we have a recession and excise tax revenues dry up, state revenues dry up. I can remember back to 2008, 2009, I had some clients that were 3 or 4%, and all of a sudden they're kind of upside down. It's just like anything. It's a rainy day fund. It hasn't rained in a long time, but at some point you would think it was going to rain again. It's been pretty good since that period of time. And COVID was a little bit weird, but we haven't really had a recession like we have had in 2008 or 2009. That's been 15 years.
Mhm.
So I mean, that's the risk, is that those revenue sources that have been really good dry up. People have a more difficult time paying their real estate taxes. People aren't buying new cars, and so your excise taxes dry up. So I guess that's the risk.
And is there a risk of having a large unassigned fund balance if inflation is at 5%, 3%? Are we?
I mean, if you had a really healthy fund balance, interest rates were high, you know, those, you know, big purchases, let's say you wanna go out and buy a bunch of cruisers. You could use your own fund balance to go and do that as opposed to go out and get a loan to do it. So I think there'd be an argument to have a good fund balance under those circumstances. Yeah. I mean, there's all sorts of different theories about, you know, unassigned fund balance. I mean, I've been in plenty of meetings where people say if we have any fund balance, we have too much fund balance because that means we've taxed citizens too much.
Exactly, and we're holding on to $1.7 million and. I mean, there was a time when interest rates were very low and inflation was running at 8 or 9% and we're holding on to 2 point something million
Mhm.
and losing 8%
Yeah,
and not earning anything in the bank.
yes, yeah.
You can earn money in the bank if you want. You just have to put it into something that earns income,
Right. And
As
lock
opposed
it up
to-
for a bit.
opposed to it sitting in the checking.
Can we go, I think we're on page 4. Unless there are any other questions about fund balance? Interestingly enough, I went to a conference recently and there was a national speaker there. And he was saying there are governments outside of New England that have 100% unassigned fund balance. I guess he was giving us the indication that New England were actually pretty frugal compared to the rest of the country, that we were a little bit, you know, lower on that side as opposed to some governments in the South and in the West that have fund balance that's 50% unassigned fund balance as a percentage of budget, or 100%, which kind of surprised me. Okay, if we take a look at graph 4, we have general fund revenues. This is budget actual comparison. And total revenues were about $242,000 over budget. There's some language here about some of the larger variances. So tax revenues were over budget by about $62,000, and that was due to higher than expected excise tax collections. Obviously, it's difficult to know who's going to be buying those new cars, and so it's can be something that's difficult to budget for. And intergovernmental revenues were over budget by about $162,000 due to greater than expected state revenue sharing. The other thing I'll point out on this graph is that if you look towards the bottom, there's utilization of prior year surplus and use of carry forwards. So that's the town choosing to use a portion of its fund balance to balance its budget. It's not a new revenue source. And that's why you're seeing nothing in that actual column. I just wanted to point that out. Sometimes there's questions about that. Go to graph 5, general fund expenditures and a budget and actual. Also want to have budget and actual comparison. In total, expenditures were about $71,000 under budget. Again, some of the variances are mentioned here. General administration expenditures are under budget by about $215,000, primarily due to lower than expected employee benefit costs and abatements. Protection expenditures are under budget by $72,000 due to lower than expected police department costs. I think there were some vacancies at that period of time. And community services and buildings are under budget by about $70,000, primarily due to lower than anticipated recreation costs, which were impacted by COVID. You know, COVID seems like a distant memory at this point, but you know, the tail end of 21 and the beginning of 22, we're still kind of dealing with that. So it had an effect on those recreation costs. Then if we take a look at graph 7, we have general fund expenditures in a pie chart format. So just a different graphical representation of your general fund expenditures. When looking at this, you can see your 3 large categories were education at 55%, public works at 12%, general administration at 11%. Not much to say here. I mean, usually for any municipality, whether or not you have your own school department or you're paying into a RSU or an SAD, education is going to be anywhere between 45 and 65% of the total. Beyond that, you know, sometimes it's public safety, sometimes it's public works. But overall, it's, you know, there's not too much surprising here. Your debt service is at 6.35%. That's pretty average, around 6%. See that a lot. That's pretty much everything I had. Any other questions?
Can you give us an idea of how much, so 6% is our debt load, 6% of our budget. Can you give us an idea of how much debt we are paying down each year? How much debt we're retiring each year?
I could, I don't have that information right in front of me. Maybe Justin does. Got it in that great big binder right there.
Yeah.
The current year budgeted about 450,000 to get paid down, the principal.
Principal pay down of 450,000.
130 in interest.
That's for 24.
Yeah, that's now, so then it might have been different, I don't have that number.
Added debt in the last 2 years.
Yeah,
So it sounds like we got a pretty advantageous position if we're paying down debt and the interest costs are barely in the six-figure range.
And all the debt that we currently have is at a significant, it's probably 3% or less. It was borrowed prior to the inflationary period.
Is it possible that we could get our auditing process caught up this year?
We can try. I mean, that was the intent last year. Start doing next audit. It's not till November. It's 23. So, yeah, I mean, I think things with the transition that's happened the last few years, I think I'm hopeful that things are gonna be a little bit quicker. It was a little bit of a slow process this last year. We're hoping to gain some traction here. Catch up. Yeah, I'll take this 1 year to get behind, and it gets tough to get back on track. So, yeah, I mean, we just finished. Obviously, we just finished the 22. If we get the 23 done in 3 months, theoretically, we could have back on track next year, get two done in 1 year.
We're finding some of our committees that are applying for grant funding are having difficulty convincing grantors without a current audit.
Yeah,
That's a big challenge.
yeah, no, that makes sense to me. Yeah, no, it's usually bondholders, even holding debt, they start getting a little squirrely.
And some of the grantors are financial institutions.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's the plan. It's the plan.
And our new bookkeeper will facilitate this,
Yes.
catching up.
This next year is the first year that Mark had a hand in this one was, I was only here for half of this year that you're doing here. It was so, and as you know, between that transition and we've had 2 people be the finance person in the interim. So starting in 23, the next one they're gonna work on, there should be some consistency. And Mark is, he's all ready for when they start firing questions off. He's gonna start preparing our financial statements so that next time, hopefully they'll have something that looks more like a little package with a bow on it, and then they can do their work more quickly than having to deal with my understanding of accounting or Lori's understanding of accounting and trying to answer their questions the best that we know how.
In the fact that you weren't here to.
Right, to find-
Actually find things or.
Right, to actually know what it
Yeah.
was that was happening.
Yeah,
So hopefully it will be a smoother.
yeah, I mean, it's tricky when there's turnover to try and get things answered, and I think that's part of the issue is. That's how to answer questions.
Thank you.
Certainly.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming up.
Thank
Thank you, Zach.
you.
Thanks for having me.
Next is the approval of the minutes for July 10th. I thought they were good. Jessica does a great job.
Yeah. She does.
She was nervous about doing them at first, but I think she's getting that nice and simple.
Yes. Yeah. Sweet. That's funny. I make a motion, we approve the minutes of July 10th, 2024.
I'll second.
So the motion by Chris, second by Ken, to approve the minutes of July 10th. All those in favor? Thank you. Next are department reports. The guy.
Good evening. So I looked at our tally for this year. As of January 1st, we're up to 109 calls of service, which is about average the last couple of years. We averaged about 200 calls total. So we're a little bit above average actually this time. In the past, I'm gonna say 2 months, the fire department's responded to several structure fires in mutual aid towns. Knock on wood, escaping them, which is great. But I don't know what's in the water. It's just been crazy and battling fires with all the heat, humidity that we've had. It's been a struggle. We've been going through cases and cases of bottled waters that were donated, and we still have a pallet left, which is really good. The latest fire claimed the home of a firefighter in the town of Wales, Tony Gallipo, 15-year veteran. I just saw on Facebook they'll be having a benefit dinner for him and his family. It's August 25th. Actually, yeah, I think it's in August. So we'll definitely support him in that regard. Fortunately, nobody was home. Fire broke out. I missed the last meeting, so I'll use this opportunity to say the 8th annual Monmouth Street Party went very well. It was on a Sunday instead of Saturday because of the weather. Everybody seemed to have a great time. Got very good comments from the public. So all in all, it's a good event. Again, beautiful weather for the night. Just want to say thanks to everybody that helps out with that event. A lot of them are firefighters. Certainly, Ken is captain of the boat race. And it's always a fun time. And then certainly all the businesses and the individuals that help support us year after year for that event. They appreciate their continued support. Tomorrow night, speaking of structure fires, this one's actually deliberate. We're gonna have live fire training up off Route 135, just past Woolworth Estates on the right. Sad to see a nice little old building go away, but the property owners gonna demolish it and they graciously donated to us. So it's not every day we get an opportunity to burn a structure. We're gonna do some ventilation operations on the roof and then we're gonna do some live structural firefighting, burn it flat afterwards. If you see activity up there or smoke column in the sky, it's just training. Last thing I got is just to give you guys an update on the Monmouth Firehouse Museum. I like to try to do that when I can. Things are really going quickly. We got like 4 to 6 weeks left. It's gonna be completed. If you didn't see today, the doors went up. They're barn style doors that replaced the old overhead doors. Couldn't really get the original doors, but these were custom made by Cabin Masters, and happy to see the Monmouth Mustang color doors. And then the building will be painted white eventually, so those doors will really pop. We're hoping to break ground next week with the 9/11 Memorial Park. They're gonna test hole for where the foundation for the memorial stone is gonna go. We just got a quote on the flagpole, and we're hoping to start working on the retaining wall for the next week or two. So things are progressing really good. We're hoping also next week that they're to finish right now it's all framed and wired, and we're having it insulated next week. Just a lot of stuff going on with that project. We're still fundraising, so anybody would like to donate, please do so. I gave our address to Doug. I'm sure he'll put it in the minutes. We're probably gonna come up about $10,000 short, what we're seeking to do in the next 4 to 6 weeks. But we're hopeful this last drive with our golf fundraiser and everything, we'll be able to raise those funds. Thought I'd throw that out there. Any questions about the fire department?
A while back, we talked about an ISO review of,
Yeah,
what happened with that?
deaf ears.
It disappeared?
Yeah, I know. Mark had asked about it and I looked into it and the gentleman that I reached out to a few months, maybe it's been 5 or 6 months ago now. Yeah, he said midsummer, he'd reach out to us and he hasn't. So guess I gotta reach out a third time and say, hey, the summer's quickly going by and now's the time to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll make a note of that. Cool. You got another call? Anything else?
Thank you. Oh, Lisa.
Yeah, sir, can I just talk?
Hi.
Can I just talk from here?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so things are going pretty good at the beach. Session 1 for swim lessons ends on Friday. We've had 25 kids this session, which is pretty low, but considering late notice as to whatnot, that's not bad. We're starting our second session on Monday, and as of this afternoon, we had 17 kids signed up, and we usually get some more on the first day, so probably be right around the same. Guarding's going pretty good. Afternoons have been busy, most afternoons when it's been hot, so even yesterday when it rained lightly, people were swimming pretty much consistently all till like 3 o'clock, so it was, we still had swim lessons in the rain this morning and 90% of the kids showed up, so. Yes. The only issues we've had are, right out by the first floating dock, there's been some metal glass, and when we find it, we dig up what we can. I don't know if it's from winter when stuff goes through the ice or what, but we found a lot of metal glass in that area, so, had a couple people cut themselves, but, there isn't much we can do about that, because we don't see it until it happens, so.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a question. How many lifeguards do we have?
We have 5 other lifeguards in, okay, so the 5, not including myself,
Is there a lifeguard at the north?
no.
Thank you.
Just a couple of things. Tony and I have been working with FEMA quite a bit, trying to get the money for the December storm. We've got most of the numbers put together now, but now I have to do the clerical part, which is filling out their myriad of spreadsheets in their format. So I'll be working on that a little. Everything's all set to go. Like I mentioned before, the company's been held up by weather a little bit, so they're not here yet. We don't have a firm date when they'll be here, but next couple of weeks, I would expect them to start. We don't know whether they're gonna start on Town Farm Road or the Wilson Pond Road. I also would expect in the next month to 2 months that some residents in town will start getting postcards from our revaluation company. If they're starting to engage, they've been sending me some of the stuff that they're gonna send out to get it approved, so I would expect they'll start picking neighborhoods somewhere in the next couple of months. I would also expect it to start slow as we get toward the fall. Summertime is hard to do, it's hot, and there's a lot of people at home that are trying to enjoy the summer, so as we move towards the fall, I would expect them to bring in more employees, and then people will really start to notice that they're out visiting. I would expect it to be 1 or 2 people at first, and then as they ramp up, there'll be 6 or 7 people in town driving in different directions, so. Just so everybody, if you start getting those postcards sometime, I'll let you know when I know they're going out, but I just wanted to give everybody a heads up that it's coming. As I mentioned in my notice to you folks, I had a second request to Jellystone to help us pay for that culvert, and he sent it up the flagpole, and it was a firm no. They're not interested in even discussing it. So I just wanted to let you know that.
Has there been any response from Leeds or Wayne?
No, because I was trying to figure out whether the campground would pay anything and how much, and then I was trying to find out how much the total project would be. because of the fact that we didn't have the money approved at the town meeting, the low bidder has bailed. So we're now gonna have to move on to the next bidder if we can get an extension from the Army Corps to do the project. If not, we won't be able to do it this year. And as of next spring, we'll lose the grant money that we got, so we have to reapply again and start the process over. So I don't know at this point what it's gonna look like, so I haven't bothered to ask.
How are the Band-Aid and bubblegum culverts holding up?
It's there, one side of the road has a hole in it. I mean, it's not repairable. It's basically just trying to fill it, and every time it rains, the road surface goes back down through the culvert because there's nothing underneath it to support it. If it lets go in the middle of the season, the campground's not, I don't know what they're gonna do because they won't be able to get in there anymore. So that'll be the end of that place for the season is, which I made very clear to them. But it's gone on deaf ears, so.
So we're gonna lose the 150.
Potentially, we have gotten permission from IF&W for the extension. They're the first one. And now we've requested it from the Army Corps. If they say it's okay, then we can get an extension. And the second lowest bidder can do it if we have an extension. They can't do it in the window that the Army Corps gives.
How much more expensive is the?
Probably about 22,000. And on a happier note, the Friday night food events at Compton seem to be going very well. So tell your friends, it seems to be busy. Dennis is very happy with the turnout at all of the events. and
It's been great.
It
I've been
seems
to
to
each
be-
one. We've had a lot of fun and
Good.
seen
Yeah.
lots of people there.
So it seems to be a success. So he's happy with it. I just wanted to say it out loud.
They run out of food, I think, each time. So it's telling them,
They-
bring more, bring more. bring
Yeah.
more."
That's it, unless you have any questions for me.
Next is select board reports. Did everybody get that letter from Joel from the water district?
Yes, it's posted on the town website.
Oh, it is.
Refresh our memory on what that letter talks
It's an
about.
update on the North Monmouth Water Project. It kind of lays out the money they have and the money they think they're gonna get if they get approval for the grants. That just kind of gives the community an update on where their funding situation is at the moment. Obviously, the big one in there is Susan Collins is 3.5 million. If that comes through, that'll be huge.
Have we heard anything from her office about when they might be able to come talk to us about that?
Oh, go, yeah, okay. Steve,
We met with Susan Collins, representative, last week. She was very positive, position that the Water Association has. So she forward to seeing some documentation from us, which our books are in order and all on the move. So it's great.
our representative Kent will be here at your August 7th meeting.
Anything else from the select board?
I got the text alert about when you were closing for the
Yeah, that was our first try.
fisheries
with the thing.
training, and so I got it, Jeff got it, because we had signed up, so that was nifty to see how it works.
We had a meeting of the Trails Committee the Friday before that. Did a walkthrough with representative from Department of Conservation, I think. Like that. Anyway, these are the folks that have just been given the task of distributing $3 million of bond money, something like that, to $3 million-ish of bond money to support trail systems. And the hope is that we might be able to apply for some of that to create a walking trail from the ball field, Monmouth Academy ball field that goes through over the river and through the woods and around the middle school. It comes out somewhere close to your house. The other end. So we did a walkthrough with them, seemed pretty optimistic that they were liking the idea. We've got a little bit of planning to do in order to put that together and put an application together for, a better understanding of funding. But there's some opportunity there.
And you have a meeting Friday?
We do. Yep, day after tomorrow. 8 a.m. And in fact, Chad Wright might be coming by. That's who, he was just texting me like, oh, there we go. He walked in while I was talking. Mr. Wright has an application to join the Trails Committee, and I don't know if we need to wait before considering it, but
Your policy, so.
but maybe for the purpose of inclusion at Friday's meeting, we could consider it during the public comment portion of the meeting.
He's pretty suspect.
I know.
I want to review that
Kind of a
application.
known quantity. Police chief isn't here to vouch for him, so.
You is though. Yeah.
Anything else from the select board? Next is public comment. Mary Beth.
Can I say something?
You sure
You
can.
can.
Okay, I've got a sore foot. I'm going over here so people can see me. I'm Mary Beth Paquette. I'm a member of the Age Family Monument Committee. I was just thinking, we've been in existence for 1 year, July 2023. We've only started with your blessing, and it's pretty exciting. I'm here to talk very briefly on behalf of the committee in support of the old academy building. One of the areas of what do we call it? The 8 domains of livability include recreation, and another is socialization. And we had looked at that hall as a wonderful potential as a community center where seniors, we're not supposed to use that word, where older people of all ages could come and enjoy whatever's going on there. And I for one was certainly disappointed to find out that there's not the commitment for that building that there was at one point. So I'm just here to plead with you to keep working on that. If there's any way that the committee can help, that I could help, let me know, but we really need that space. The Packard Center is marginally accessible. I just think for older people in the community, it would be such a thrill to go back to that renovated building and enjoy that space again, maybe as they once did as a youth. So please, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Yes.
Just because the chief is not Michelle Will and he's not here, he'd yell at me if I do not mention once again, we have the community night out coming up on Tuesday, August 6th. And, I have a commitment from the fire department to be there with trucks. I have a commitment from Public Works to be there with trucks. I have a commitment from Age Friendly to be there. I have a commitment from Lions Club. So we are expecting quite a few people, and we certainly hope the community comes out to support us.
Fishing game.
Thank you. A fishing game, I'm sorry. Fishing game, I'm sorry.
Oh, it's a fishing game?
What time?
It's
No, and the fishing game will
Fishing
be
game
there
Be there.
with our
I
little
know. they were-
fishing pole raffle, so.
Where is it? The police station?
It's at the police station, but there's a lot of community people that are gonna do that.
5
We
o'clock.
don't have a flyer. I have a few here to hand out. Not as many as the chief
An hour
has, but I
earlier than
have
usual.
5 p.m.
5 p.m.
on the 6th.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, and the chief.
I got a
still
ferry to
thinks
run
so.
at 5 o'clock. I gotta run the ferry. Maybe they'll all check in at 3 and it'll all be good.
I'm bringing to the,
Yeah, I'll bring them with me.
Here's a-
Hey, are you guys hungry? Before we do the ferry thing.
Hey, why not?
free hot dog.
Hot dogs, hamburgers, they're good.
This year you're adding, did you add hamburgers last year?
Did.
Okay, so it was
Did.
last year you added hamburgers,
We
so
did.
we got hamburgers
Yeah.
and hot dogs, yeah.
I did, I remember them well.
Anything else from the public?
You have an application for us, Mr. Wright? Here we go.
Pressure chat.
All right, Chad Wright. Get a little experience in terms of trail master. Mr. Chair, we have an application from Mr. Wright to be included on the Trails Committee, and I would make a motion that we approve Mr. Wright for the Trails Committee as a voting member. Second.
So there's a motion by Ken and a second by Mark to approve Chad Wright's application as for the Pit Trail Committee. All those in favor?
That's got to be a record-setting time. Highly efficient municipal government right there.
Dog is very interested.
Oh, send her down.
Town clerk will reach out to you to have you, come in and get sworn at.
So you can vote on Friday. You're gonna be sworn in before you vote on Friday on anything.
Okay, on to consider the use of the remaining whole academy project funding.
Ready? You don't know me, I'm Dawn Hodgson, I'm the chair of the former Academy Building and Use Committee. Here with members, Larry's here, Dr. Bucci, Steve Eldridge is here, who works with us on fundraising. I'm here to provide a quick overview of the project. Work completed to date, what is scheduled to be done to get the building buttoned up. Quick overview. Project's been going on since September 2021. Construction manager came on board in April of 2022. Demolition of the balance of the site, leaving that started in on April 4th of 2022 and ended in May. That cost us about $47,000. Work completed to date, Nickerson O'Day began the more strategic demolition in September of 2022. Since then, the exterior of the building, including the roof, windows, bell tower removal, getting it taken apart so we could see how it was put together and so we could reconstruct it. Dome reconstruction, exterior trim, front porch, masonry, interior demolition, including the large chimney. Reclaimed brick from the large chimney was used on the exterior. The value of the work completed or accomplished and materials purchased to date is $1 million. $1,007,237. Currently, the item scheduled to be done with a majority of the money left. We're having this discussion. That money has already been committed to subs and vendors. That includes finishing the fascia trim and soffit, finish painting exterior trim, some minor site work to smooth up grounds, installing doors, frames, and hardware. Those have already been purchased. Concrete slab and piers, interior framing to close up the basement, vestibule, and vestibule framing. Reframe the second floor framing at the vestibule, install a ladder to the second floor, mechanical. Steel handrail in the front steps, electrode copper on the dome and flashing the bell tower frame. Electrode copper is deemed to be the most cost-effective way of long-term maintenance, I guess, on the dome. Complete the bell tower and set it on the roof with a crane. We have a small amount of brick repair of the new door frame and installed 2 new basement windows. Of that list, we're hoping, what needs to be done, will leave between $50,000 and $60,000 to go towards insulation, and maybe provide 1 heating unit to keep some of the heat in the building. We should be careful of that. Although last winter, the building was left unheated. This year, we have new windows, electric panel, temporary wiring in the building already. It's extremely, in my opinion, it's extremely important to get the facility completely enclosed and use what is left towards getting insulation and heat source installed, so the building can be conditioned, kept from freezing. Why, you wonder? Moisture from the freeze-thaw cycle will cause damage to the new items noted above. Now, again, we've already invested $1 million in the building, getting it taken apart and starting to put it back together. Moisture from the freeze-thaw cycle will cause damage to those new items. Therefore, the committee will do what we can to make sure that we can meet this need. Nixon and O'Day actually suggested that we could install just a hot air furnace to get started, temporary unit, that would give us some good cost savings. And then ultimately, because that's not the plan was to put in 3 gas-fired units in the area above the auditorium. And then we could sell the temporary unit to get some money back on that once we had the permanent heat source installed. That's the status of it right now. Again, I just want to say that the money that was approved initially is spoken for. It has been committed to our vendors and to the subcontractors. And, you know, we've worked hard with Nixon O'Day and Bob Design to do everything we can as efficiently as possible, to do as much as we can out of the money that we have available. And I believe I can speak for my fellow committee members when I say we have been very fortunate to work with both those companies, Paul Design Project and Nixon O'Day. The staff members have been incredibly helpful and instrumental in getting the building as far as it has come along, given the difficulties we've all experienced since 2019. Been a rough time. As we continue to raise money towards the project, my hope is I'd like to continue working with them. That's where we are at this point. If you have any questions, I can turn it over to Steve.
Speak to the grants. I'll just speak from here. We have quite a few opportunities coming up. Governor Mills put together 25 million put aside for restoration of community buildings throughout the state. I've spoken that you have to go through the Maine Preservation Commission in order to get that. We have an application that's going out tomorrow to put this building on the Maine National Register. To have access to that funding, you will not need to be compliant with all the stipulations that come with when you're borrowing money for historic preservation. This was her wish to do it that way. So we are planning on applying for that money. I think we have a very good opportunity in receiving that. Once it goes through the Maine Preservation, it will go on to the federal Maine Historic Commission, and they have funding available as well, which we can apply for. That we won't be able to really access until early spring or late winter. And that's come from the Maine Historic people I spoke to yesterday. We still have grant opportunities. There's one going out for the end of this month from KeyBank. The most that is 15,000. Hopefully we'll get nodded for that. And we have an updated audit somewhat updated. I'm hoping to use that and they'll accept that as proof that we are stable and the debt service isn't too high. All the other grants that we applied to are upcoming again because it's been almost a year. So we'll be applying from the Alphont, Libra Foundation, Stephen King, and a bunch of other smaller groups. Plus, we haven't, Kristen had spoken to Kennebec Savings. They provided 25,000 last year. I'm planning on asking for that same amount this year, along with Andrew Scoggin Bank, there's a quarterly grant that they've commit to. So that's due. No, I think that's sometime. So it comes up every 3 months. So there's funding out there. I feel pretty good. And Kristen has done an amazing job. The money keeps coming in from alumni. She's had a lot of help from people here in the community who graduated from Academy. So it's a great project. I'm pretty confident that we will access some of these pots of money to finish this project. And I think it's important. If you haven't had a chance to look at the history of this building, you have some pretty special people who have gone through this school and graduated and went on to bigger things. General Howard is one who was the founder of Howard University. You have Cumston, who went through this process, went on to Bowdoin, made the donation here. There's a number of Civil War veterans who came out of here, who went on to higher ranking positions. So, and 4 of them were governors of the state of Maine. So the historical significance of this building, just for the state, is important, but it's also important for this community because it's part of our culture. Monmouth Academy is known throughout the state as one of the best schools systems around, and it has been proven that with people who have graduated there. I think as part of our culture here in Monmouth, it's important to maintain and use that building for what we intended to use for.
You forgot to mention Doug Ludwig,
Oh,
graduated. Graduated from Monmouth Academy, right?
No, no,
Oh.
just Mrs. Ludwig.
No, he's from
Mrs.
away.
Ludwig. Just
Never
Mrs.
mind.
Ludwig, yeah.
Nancy Ludwig.
So, I plan on continuing to sit down and write grants. And keep requesting funding, so I am very confident that we'll be able to move forward and complete this project.
Thank you, Steve, for doing that. Thank you so much.
And I just want to add that whatever money is left, we can use towards matching some of these grants. So you can double your money or maybe even more than double your money. And that would be a better use of taxpayer money than trying to apply it to the debt, which would be insignificant. So doubling the money would really be important, and it would also speed up the process. So if we can get a grant and match it and proceed to get more done on that building, the sooner that it can be used for, very best projects and other people, the town can utilize it. People in the community can utilize it, but prolonging any completion of that building is gonna cost us more money. And everybody here knows that.
Thank you.
I've had a request from a couple of constituents for a clarification on the website for the Building Reuse Committee. Because apparently there seems to be a continuing confusion on what the expected capacity of the building would be.
The expected capacity.
Mhm.
So if you look at the plans that are on the website with the capacities noted right on them, this is without tables. So I think they gave a total capacity of around, 200 on those plans, but I believe that what it'll probably end up being around is around 150 to 200. So and especially then when you put tables in there, depending on what type of event you're having, so.
Sure.
But,
And is that something that we could clarify on the website, just to give it a little more obvious?
I can look at what the architect and the fire marshal's office
Yep,
put out there, and I can put that number out there,
that
but
would be
that,
helpful. And then, and maybe just for a point of clarity with the building uses, what the expected uses are going to be. I mean, I hear the long history of the building and those, you know, a 1985 graduate of Monmouth Academy. I get it. I graduated from that building. Well, actually, I graduated in a gymnasium that's no longer, but I graduated from that building. Mom worked as a librarian in that building. But I think we need to respond to some of the concerns that folks are voicing in terms of getting clarity on what we're expecting the uses are going to be and what the building capacity is going to be, because the website's pretty heavy on history, but not necessarily on the future.
so I think we've been pretty clear about how we're gonna use it, so, and that they can, as we've said, there's every meeting recorded out there, and,
It would be, I think it would be helpful if people could see it on the website too.
okay. I will tell my webmaster.
I think you just repeat some of the previous, articles. Because they do clarify all of that.
Yes.
It just needs to be a little more prominent so that folks are getting a full picture of what the future holds.
Just like that, something that Dawn had said, and the point that Dawn made is, for all this time, we've been watching very little being done to the building there. We've seen a lot of things torn down, and we left, what was it, 8 feet or the old building still attached, and that had to be carefully torn down so that it didn't, jeopardize the building, the structure. So people are looking at this, year after year, and they're saying, well, you're not doing anything. Well, we are doing something. We're getting a lot done. And now we're at the point that Dawn made, that we're starting to see things. Lead paint's gone, starting to look good, the tower's going up. And this is when people are starting to complain the most. So it's very frustrating from our point of view, because this is when things are gonna really start to take shape. And people are gonna really start to see improvements.
Steve,
Regarding the occupancy, does the state fire marshal make that final determination? And have
There's a whole.
have they made that determination?
No, because we have not submitted it, because there's no sense in submitting when we're not at that point yet, because it costs about $1,200 to submit for that permit. And we will submit that permit, but there are stipulations, and it tells you exactly what the occupancy is. And we've been through all of that, and we know what the occupancy will be. I don't have that particular piece of paper here in my folder, but I do have a complete, breakdown of what the occupancy will be. But I don't have it in this folder. I know exactly where it's sitting on my desk though. So,
But the state fire marshal makes that final determination, and that hasn't been made yet. Is that correct?
well, there hasn't, because we haven't submitted the permit yet, because we are not at the occupancy stage yet.
And it's possible the fire marshal could have a different opinion of this when that time comes.
I doubt that, because they pretty much have a standard of what the occupancy is. And we have talked to them several times about it. Or the architect has talked to them several times about it.
yes,
Just another comment is, people here are speaking like this project is going to be completed, but I think realistically, if you look at it, there's a very good chance that it will never be completed.
What?
That's not true.
Why are you saying that?
I have the floor right
Sorry.
now. The townspeople just said that they don't want to spend any more money on this. And I think when you go out for grants, They're gonna say, well, are the townspeople behind it? Well, you'll have to answer that they voted it down considerably. So as I see, if this project is not completed, it's a very good chance it won't. You're right in front of you now, you have the money that is spent so far would be somewhat wasted. And you have a decision, do you want to continue wasting more money? A question I had asked when this project got going, I had proposed this. When did you all find out that it was going to go way over budget? And when did the selectmen know about it? And how did they respond? It seems like this could have been curtailed earlier. So I started reviewing some of their meetings online. On October 17th of 22, one of the members of the committee said at the meeting, this project is in trouble, and the further we go, the more trouble we're going to get into. And someone answered to that, that's the nature of the beast. So that was just after the start of the project. They were in trouble and they knew they were going to go, and it was financial stuff they were talking about. So I just wondering why they didn't come to you earlier, to the Board of Selectmen, and talk about the problems they had and how it was going to go way over budget, and perhaps we could have saved more money. So,
Did you get more detail on that? I don't remember that.
okay, if you look up the meeting on 10/17/22 at 13 minutes and 45 seconds, you'll see that statement made.
Who said that?
It was, I'm sure that the gentleman, he sits over on that seat right there at the meetings.
Steve Brown.
I don't know him, but it was one of the members of the committee. He made that statement. That's all I have to say today.
And working with the fire marshal's office and in your line thing, do you have any insight on that? I know there's a square footage thing and you've calculated capacity at the Fish and Game Club for us and.
Yeah, certainly. So as the fire chief of the town of Monmouth, I certainly can see a little permit, just need to be asked. To this date, I have not been asked to do anything with this project. Be happy to, just be asked. Chris is correct. The fire marshal will do that once somebody applies for a state permit. That has not happened yet. State would do a plan review process and can certainly calculate. I can see what. So the comment of 150 to 200 people, I think, is incorrect. I don't know where that calculation is coming from. They're just looking at the exterior building dimensions. To do it properly, if you're going to look at that as a public assembly, we should go in and do just the large room, as far as calculating your occupancy load. When I went in and just did a kind of just a walkthrough, I did a quick calculation. Don't hold me to this, but I think it was based on tables and chairs, 15 square feet per person. You get about 75, 76, and even round it up to 80 people for that space. You double that, go to 7 square feet per person for standing room only. So again, 150, 160 people. You want to have like a dance, certainly you can get 150 people in there. Not 150 to 200 people, because when you say that number, I think it just gives a false sense that to a large wedding party, we can have 200 people. So let's occupy that space. Throw in tables and chairs and put 200 people in, you're in violation. So shouldn't be calculating the square footage for bathrooms or maybe a storage closet or other rooms that are in that building. Look at the large public assembly. Then you got to calculate what you have for exits. And can that 150 number in 2 means of egress accommodate that amount of people going in, in case of an emergency, going in separate exits. I haven't done that, but chances are, I think it's upwards of 100 people, whereas 2 exits. And probably 150 people would be sufficient, but I'd have to measure the widths of the doors. I know they had a couple of narrow doors on the inner doors. That's going to be changed in the plans. Again, haven't seen any plans to do a proper plan review. But yeah, just something to think about. Certainly, if they get forward with their process and their permit process with the state fire marshal inspector, and we'll do all that for them. Certainly, that's what I would recommend, is kind of take me out of the firing range with all the politics of this project. But I'd be happy to sit down with the committee and give them kind of a rough idea, calculation, and kind of food for thought when they do go forward with the process with the state fire marshal's office.
Thank you.
Any questions on that?
Yeah, there's different standards then for tables and chairs versus standing room only.
Yep.
And how would the fire marshal take a look at it if it were used for voting?
It all depends on your setup. I would consider that standing room, because you got the little booths there with 3 or 4 people around them. So you can probably use the 7 square. The tables and chairs is, setting up your 8-foot tables, 3 or 4 chairs per side, or if you go all the way around, 6 or 8 chairs. There's calculations for a stage, if you had a stage in there. In a wedding party, you could have 3/4 of the room, tables and chairs, and have a dance floor, and you could tweak that number a little bit and say, well, for the square footage of the dance floor, we could use 7 square feet per person. So maybe get a little bit higher number, in that regard. Usually when I did calculations, I used to work at the fire marshal's office. I wasn't an inspector, I was an investigator, but I was also a fire prevention officer in the city of Lewiston, where I did a lot of these. So I have the code background. I usually give them the max number based on the type of occupancy. So if you're gonna have an assembly occupancy, tables and chairs, use the 15 square feet. It's gonna be a dance, use the 7. And you post an occupant load sign on the door by the exit, say occupants capacity for tables and chairs is this number, for standing room only, it's this number. Then everything else just falls in between. So if you have, your committee goes up there, it's probably gonna have the chairs. I don't think you'd see those numbers, but prefer to Mary Beth. But really, you just want to be careful on when you throw out numbers. But, it's first floor only. Can't calculate the basement. I think that's going to be closed to the public. And the second floor, I think, is the next. Just utilities, so you can't count that level for occupancy. Yeah, Larry.
Well, I just wanted to address what Steve Kalenda did not tell you. When Steve Brown said that, our committee then said, okay, we gotta change things. So originally, we were gonna put an elevator in to get to the second floor. We canceled that. Steve didn't happen to mention that, but that was $100,000 that we saved by eliminating the elevator. And then we eliminated the steps up to the second floor. We decided not to use the second floor at all for the public, but to just make it into a mechanic room. So Steve Brown has spent 40 years at Peachy Builders doing commercial construction. And Steve Brown right away started giving us ideas how we could cut the cost of the project. So I think I don't want to be left with the impression that we didn't do anything, because we did do a lot. The dormers on the back, we decided not to put those back in. So we made a lot of alterations to save money, and that's what Steve Brown did, and same with Dawn and everybody else on the committee. In fact, the reason we didn't apply for the fire marshal's permit was because we wanted to save the $1,200, because the permit was only gonna be good for so long. So we have been watching the pennies, and we're trying to move ahead with this project.
Thank you.
Where do we go?
You can continue having this discussion. You can decide you want to just let them finish. You can. That's your choice. I gave. I'm happy to read the legal opinion if you want. Chris asked me to, verify that what I was saying, that, you have the authority to stop a project at any time because you're the fiduciaries. However, if the money is to be diverted to, say, paying down the debt or any other purpose, you have to go back to the voters to get that authorization. So if you stop them, the money is just gonna, it is gonna sit there until the town meeting authorizes it to be used for something other than what it's already been purposed for.
Don't you have an obligation to subcontractors and contractors to pay them for what they're doing, what they have been scheduled to do?
John, well, you said there's a lot of already been committed, right? That's.
Most of it has.
Been committed but not paid.
Because the work's gonna be done the next.
As somebody who's been to I think, probably every meeting that, the group has had, although I wasn't a member for quite a while, there's too many people who have, worked too hard to let this go, I think. Too many people have too much invested in it to, just say, ah. You,
I think it's really frustrating. I think if we hadn't had the vote for the additional monies the last poll, we would be having this discussion. We wouldn't be here. It's going to be an agenda item. It's been frustrating. I think since that happened, it's been falsely viewed and it was like sharks smelling blood in the water. And that's incorrect. I think if you look to my right, you see a lot of talented people. We're very fortunate at the moment to have the Monmouth Museum Complex. Mary, right next to me, his father and family donated to this community. So there's a private association that does that. Larry, for example, is a huge part of that board of trustees. And there are 7 or 8 buildings now, Larry?
Yeah.
So, and their continued upkeep and operation, obviously he has a vast amount of experience doing that. He also is involved in the 1870 church at Monmouth Center, the United Church of Monmouth. And dealing with that older structure, I know as a trustee there, he's very involved in that. So I think his success at canvases is visually right down the road. We have Steve Eldridge here and a host of other talented people. I think we need to let them do their job. They're doing it very well in other places. I don't think they're gonna fail here. Let's give them, we have all this talent. Why would we waste it? Let them finish what they start.
what are you thinking?
I've stated my piece. I had taxpayers that had the concern and I brought the concern to the meetings. It's taxpayer dollars that are being spent, and as long as the majority of the taxpayers are in favor of it, then that's fine. But it may not be the majority of the taxpayers at this point. But I've stated my piece and that's as far as I'm going.
Mary Beth?
I'm wondering, Mark, if the money comes from grants and from other sources other than taxpayer monies. Are you thinking that people still would oppose it?
I don't believe so, no. I just, the people that voiced their concern to me was that they were concerned about taxpayer dollars.
Right.
If grants pour in for it, great. I think it would be great for the whole community. It'd be great for everybody. And we hope it does. But they were just, there were people that just didn't feel like they voted for the project initially. But they didn't get a finished product and they said they just didn't get what they voted for, so they wanted to stop funding it. But I voiced the concern and voicing the voice of the taxpayers that contacted me.
So your sense is people want it if they don't have to pay for it?
If they're not spending tax dollars on it, whatever happens with it is.
Okay. Thank
Yep.
you.
I don't know, maybe Steve Eldridge is, there was, has already looked at this, but this last session, it says an act to authorize general fund bond issue to restore historic community buildings. This bond issues $10 million to restore historic community buildings, with bonds being issued contingent on a 25% local match from either private or non-profit sources, and further authorizes the Maine Historic Preservation Commission to use up to 1% of the bond proceeds to administer the program. This is something that you've looked at, or?
Yes, I have. I've spoken to, Mr. Dane Goble, who, worked at the Maine Preservation. And he and I are gonna continue to have conversations because we're submitting this application. But it's, the final application process isn't in place yet, and it won't be until the fall. So, we're not quite sure, and he isn't, what exactly is gonna happen with that. The money's gonna be there.
The money will be there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we'll be able to do 25% match.
I don't know that.
So that, just for process, so the status quo is that the project keeps moving forward. If you want to exercise your right to stop it, then one of you needs to make a motion to have them stop spending and then have a majority vote on that. So that's where you are if you're ready to make a decision. One of you have to make a motion to start the spending from the committee at this point. Otherwise, they're gonna keep going. You don't need to vote at all. You don't need an affirmative vote to let them continue. That's already happening. It's just a matter of whether you want to stop them or not. That's clear.
Can I ask a question? What is the gain you get for stopping the project when we have funding already committed? And it needs to move forward because we have obligations to pay these people. So when we get to the point where we don't have enough funding to move forward, then the project comes to a standing halt until we have more money in the bank to do that. But in the meantime, you're gonna have the building buttoned up for the winter. You're gonna have it heated at whatever temperature they think we should. And we'll just continue to work forward. That's how projects like this work. Sometimes you don't have the money right away. And if you want to give it a perfect example, look at Johnson Hollings Artists, how many years it's taken them. Okay. We're almost there. We're 60% completed. And when this finishes for the end of this fall, what we have scheduled to be done, it's going to be a major difference in what you see. So.
What is your pleasure? Board members?
My opinion is that we should, we clearly have some motivated community members who are willing to be advocates for this project without public dollars. And if that's the way forward on this project, then I would be willing to make a motion that we table this matter until another day.
You second?
Second, we just table it.
So we're tabling it again, putting it on. Okay,
Which I guess to clarify, we're just gonna continue to move along status quo as Justin said.
Table indefinitely, it just kind of stops. So it basically just says the discussion is just, it's tabled to some other time, and
Okay.
someone else would have to bring it up again.
Okay.
So yes, you would be able to move forward. Continue to move forward.
But I'm using my words very carefully.
Okay, sorry, I don't mean to put.
I'm using my words very carefully that if the way forward on this project does not involve any other taxpayer dollars, and that we can find a way to find private funds, grant opportunities, then I would be willing to let the remaining unexpended money be used for the purpose of the project.
so
And so I make a motion that we table. I believe Kristen seconded it. And I think it might be time for a vote, Mr. Chair.
yeah, okay. All those in favor of tabling it? And there's one abstention, or
I will abstain.
Abstain.
Yeah, I don't think I didn't think we really needed a motion. If no one was gonna make a motion otherwise, then.
Thank you. On to a public hearing for fiscal year 25 budget. We'll be visiting the budget.
So if you want, because there's nothing particularly new in any of these items, I'm happy to read through this like we have in the past. And then if you have any questions with each one, does that seem like a process that will work? So we'll do that. And then if anybody in the audience has any comments, then you can certainly. Article 2, shall the town raise and appropriate $1,285,114 for general administration and appropriate an additional $48,019 from the unassigned fund balance for the same. Administration $525,153, assessing $41,380. Elected officials $16,432. Employee benefits $543,615. Risk management, that's the insurance, $60,000. Boards and committees, $43,546. That's an increase because the comp plan finishing money is in there. Code enforcement, $41,800, and municipal buildings, $61,207.
This is less than what?
It's slightly less.
Slightly.
Yeah, it's slightly less. We took some minor things out, and then the salaries and stuff could be adjusted to actuals. Because right when we start this process, it's 6 months ahead of time, so there's a little bit of guesstimation in there.
Justin, can we dive into the details of administration
Sure.
for a little bit? Because I think there's some important pieces of that people should be aware of. Like there's some initiatives in there that are crucial, I think, to smooth operation of the town. For example, within the administration budget, there's the budgeting for 2 audits in 1 year.
That's correct.
Right, so we would be budgeting so that we can get caught up and so that we could actually help the fundraising process for the building.
Right.
Right? There's
And a
another,
municipal audit's about it's about $20,000 to $25,000, so it's not an insignificant amount of money.
there's another initiative in the administration budget, which is the funding, the remaining funding for the comprehensive planning consultant.
Correct. So we have a contract with the consultant already, so we would have to pay that really one way or the other. So if
Yeah, otherwise we'd
If
be
we
in
don't-
default.
if we don't have the additional money, it would have to come out of something else. You know, it'd be basically town office operations. It's the only place that there's enough money to absorb that, because it's about $30,000. It also includes an initiative in there for the planning board to hire this individual to sort of streamline the planning board meetings and have a professional person help them with their applications and stuff so that they don't continuously get caught with applications that aren't complete before they see them. So the idea was, so there's a little bit of money in there. I think it's $8,000 or $10,000 in there to hire her on a continuing basis after the comp plan to basically staff the committee.
It's the same lady.
It's the same lady. Yeah, she's willing to help them out permanently or long-term anyway.
And then there's, in the administrative budget, there's an initiative to turn a part-time frontline person into a full-time.
That's correct. When we outsourced our accounting functions, that person was a backup person for the counter. So what we were kind of left with was 2.5 people. And on occasions when somebody's out or when we have an election or any of those other annual things, it becomes very hard. When someone goes to lunch, there's only one person out front. So this was sort of to try to make sure that there's enough staff there all the time. And we have an employee that's willing to go from part-time to full-time that we currently have.
Am I missing anything?
I think those are it in there.
Yes,
Justin, did you reconfigure code enforcement? Because we lost the plumbing inspector?
Yes,
Okay, so that's been,
yeah, that's all in there.
It went from code enforcement was on the first ballot, 44,166, and it went down to 41,800.
that takes care of Bernie's job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need to cover the other articles, Keith.
Yes, if you're all set to move on, I just wanted to make sure that everybody's good. Okay.
Ready?
I'm ready. I'm passing my seat now.
So shall the town raise and appropriate $126,247 for Parks and Recreation Program? So this one, you'll notice I didn't put any money out of the unassigned fund balance. It was something I was unclear, so I put it this way. You can tell me. My thought process was that the townspeople intentionally voted that article down to make it go up. So their intention, the way I looked at it, their intention was to have that be on the tax rate. So I didn't see why we would take the additional out of the unassigned fund balance, because that was an intentional move by the voters to increase that budget. So if you disagree with that interpretation, I can change it, but that's just the way it, okay.
In my select board notes from the last meeting, I had already said, I said that we were taking all of that out of the unassigned fund now. So that's what I said was the correct.
Well, I wasn't clear, so I interpreted it this way, and that's why I'm bringing it to your attention right now. So I want to make sure that you agree with the way that I wrote it, because it's your document, it's not mine.
Assuming we approve this document tonight and we go through the process of scheduling the election and doing the election and all of that, will we have this complete in time to lock in the rate for when the bills need to go out?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So we could put this on the current tax rate.
Yes.
It's a practical matter.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you approve this the way it's written right now, the intention is for the election to be held on August 29th. If you approve it tonight, if you need to wait for another meeting, it'll just be 2 weeks later. It'll be sometime in September.
And we will have approved or not have approved the tax rate.
The tax rate is set. This will be built into the tax rate. Yeah, so we'll be able to do the tax rate. The tax bills are due October 15th. So there's plenty of time there to get the bills out after the election. Calculate the mill rate so that this will all be included in the mill rate that's in the bills.
So when Donna gets all this calculated, it'll be September or August.
If the election's on August 29th, the next time she's in would probably be the following week, because she comes the first and third Tuesday of the month. And she may do it. That's probably when she would want to get it done so that the bills can get printed and people have 30 days to pay them. That'd be sort of normal practice anyway. It wouldn't be far wrong. Article 4, shall the town raise and appropriate $482,561 for debt retirement and debt service, and appropriate an additional $65,235 from the unassigned fund balance for the same? Debt retirement, $445,363, and debt service is $102,433.
So the retirement is the principal amount and the service is the interest.
That is correct.
That's consistent.
And how does this compare with what we voted on in June?
Debt service at the time, the article was $511,796. And the change there, the debt retirement number changed from 409,366 to this one being 445,363. So that change was, but then debt service was the same amount.
So the major difference was that it was the SCBA stuff fell off the debt. But the increase was, for the past 2 years, we've been using the excess bond proceeds from the Packard Gilman bond to buy down the amount that we had to raise in taxes to pay the debts. We've been taking about 60,000 each year from the excess bond proceeds and asking the town to use that money to pay the debt. So this is the realization of what the debt payment actually is compared to what it was the past 2 years, because we were using excess monies to make those payments.
Dave,
Okay, I have just a logistics question. I'm not 100% sure how town government works on debt service, but maybe you can answer this question. When we go to the ballot and we vote to buy a fire truck and we purchase it over time, and we have a payment that's due every year to pay off on that, that fire truck, is that part of this?
Yes.
If we've already approved the $500,000 for the fire truck, but only paying $55,000 a year for the next 20 years, we've already approved the total amount of the fire truck. Why is it in debt service? Why isn't it just paid out of the general fund? Because we've already voted to approve it.
The authorization for the total is the authorization of the town to borrow that amount.
So if we wrote the article saying this is the total for that fire truck, you can pay it off 1 year, this price, or pay it off at $50,000 a year for 25 years at this price, vote yes or no.
Yep.
If it's voted yes, then it wouldn't have to show up here. Because we.
Yes, because I have to raise the money every year to make the payment.
But that's right, so it would automatically come out of your tax money. You wouldn't
Well-
have to show it, because we've already voted saying that, yes, we've allowed you to take $50,000 out of our tax money every year to pay for that fire truck for the next 25 years.
Right, but one town meeting can't bind the next. So I have to.
That's what I'm not sure.
That's what I have to ask every year.
Okay, so it doesn't matter the way the article's written.
Correct.
Yeah, you can't encumber the town 20 years from now.
But we're paying $127,000 for
Well,
a building.
Yeah, well, 20 years from now, we could default on our loans and then, no one would let us borrow money ever again.
Right, that's basically the
They would
option.
repossess Cumston Hall.
If we didn't have the revert mechanism in the warrant and this thing failed and we couldn't get it passed, we would just default on all our debt.
Okay.
Um,
It just seems that there had to be a better way that this wouldn't have to come up every year.
Right, no, it's a good question. Yeah, it is. It's a good question.
You gotta look at it every.
Article 5, shall the town appropriate $36,000 from the unassigned fund balance for the Beaver Brook Culvert Replacement Project? The town has been awarded a stream crossing grant from the state of Maine in the amount of $150,000 to support this project. I added that, so I had some context.
Yeah. If they don't want it, close the road. They're not gonna pay for it, close the road. They'll find the money real quick, to pay for that culvert. John Tootin they would.
but don't we have some kind of obligation that we have to maintain our,
If we don't have the money, we can't pay for it. If we vote this down again, that culvert's not going in.
and we don't, do we?
And that's what happens, folks.
But are we,
Then you should close the road because it's dangerous.
are we liable for
Yeah.
something?
Let them find another way in.
Like a big rock, barricade it.
Tell you what, we have a lot of other things that we could use that money for.
That's one way to negotiate.
Send me up there, I have nothing to hold against. Oh, wait, I can't, I'm on the planning board, I can't do that.
That's not our problem.
How much trouble would we be in if we took Dave's idea to heart?
I mean, the road commissioner can close roads that he deems unsafe, so that was, if he deems at some point in the future that the road's gonna cave in and they shouldn't be driving fifth wheels over it, he'll just put a barricade up and say it's closed. I mean, that's what would happen eventually. I mean, or if it caves in, we can only do emergency repairs, so we would get out there as we could fit in a contractor, because that culvert's way too big for our equipment. Could take months. I mean, it could be there whole summer. It could disappear. I mean, but they don't seem to be, I don't know what they seem to, I can't explain it. I just want to make clear, it's not the manager of the campground, so if you know, it's not him, it's the corporate office.
Corporate ownership that thinks they're entitled to access.
Yeah.
The only thing I would ask is on the front page, if you do approve this, is to approve it as amended and change the date that the absentee ballots would be available to the 30th of July and not 31st.
Do we have the concrete culverts hanging around Public Works?
It's not there yet, but if the project doesn't move forward, we'll have to get it out of the company's yard that built it. Because it's already been built.
We could just park it in the, no, we could just put it in the middle of the road.
What did you say, Justin?
Change it to the 30th instead of the
30th.
31st, yeah.
30.
Yes.
I think everything on there looks good.
Okay.
We've made the changes and
Are we allowed to make any sort of comment on the administrative initiatives?
I can certainly add, like one of those explanation paragraphs if there's something you want to say.
Well, I think that might be helpful for people to understand. Because that's a substantial chunk of what they're voting on here. And all of those initiatives sound very reasonable to me. So I'm wondering if maybe, a sentence that says something about the planning board initiative, planning board support, the comprehensive plan support, the 2 audits in 1 year initiative. What's the 4th thing I'm missing?
Full-time.
Oh, and a full-time someone, additional hours for frontline service at town hall.
I would add an explanation of, the previous amount was such and such and it was decreased by this amount. And if you're gonna use fund balance, to let people, I think people would agree with this stuff, but let them know what's going on.
put a line in that says this will have no impact on your tax rate.
Or that they originally voted it down, the original figure was this, the new figure is this. Even the little amount that's going down, I think is meaningful.
Should we say?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
And as far as debt retirement, debt service, should we say we have to pay our debts?
You have to pay your mortgage at some point.
Not if you're not gonna take my house away.
How about forgiving your debts and your debtors?
Yes, I'll talk to him and then I'll talk to you.
Made enough changes now, so we can't approve this.
That's up to you whether you want to see it again before I have you sign the page. If you want me to make those changes and you're okay with me making them and you signing it, or you'll have to come in tomorrow. You'll have to have at least 3 of you come in tomorrow to make this deadline.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that.
So I can change this. I can change this in the morning if you guys can come in the afternoon.
Sign.
The last question I have is about Article 3 and whether that would be advantageous to deem that coming from the unassigned fund balance. What is the net effect? I know we added
About
the,
$30,000.
Thank you, Lisa.
we added by turning down the article that involved the Compton Hall credits, subsidies, that will fall to the unassigned fund balance automatically during that fiscal year, right?
Because it can't be used now.
Right, so it just goes to the unassigned fund balance, and that was like 80 or 90,000,
It's 90.
$90,000.
We're using 1,330,000 with Article 2 and Article 4
Okay, so we've already,
used it all.
we're already affecting the unassigned fund balance by about $40,000 or $50,000.
And each one of these, in theory, if they don't go up at all next year,
Yeah,
it's already created $130,000 hole in next year's budget.
Then leave Article 3 the way it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll,
Need a motion
if you
to,
make a motion as amended, and if you come in tomorrow and,
Yep. So I make a motion, we approve the warrant items, Articles 1 through 5.
Actually-
As,
sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you.
Nope.
You opened the public hearing. Did you close it?
No,
Okay, does anybody have any other? And then
I make a motion, we close the
Okay,
public hearing.
thank you. I just want to make sure.
I'll
we-
second that.
all those in favor?
And I make a motion that we instruct the town manager to that we approve Articles 1 through 5 for the purpose of a special town meeting.
As amended.
As amended, Articles 1 through 5 as amended.
And the date of the absentee ballots is the 30th.
With absentee ballots starting on July 30, 2024. Thank you.
I'll second that.
So the motion by Ken, second by Chris, to approve the amended warrant for the election on August 29th. All those in favor? I guess I said that, okay. This to,
I think I've done by around lunchtime, so. Just gonna need a. You're right.
I have to.
What time? I mean, I can try to get it done earlier.
By 11.
I can do that.
Sign it and have it go.
on to warrant number 26 and 27.
111 Main Street LLC, it's a credit enhancement payment. Bath Industrial Sales, chainsaw kits, batteries, I believe, is that for the fire department, $1,497. Constellation Energy, $1,132.49. PJ's Municipal Supply, shovels, stop slow surveyor, public works equipment, $2,166. Kennebec County, $727,856. Lance Auto and Truck Repair, 2016, Police Cruiser, $2,177. Maine Air Power Incorporated Compressor, Flex Hose Rubber Pads, $4,064. Maine Equalization Consultants, the Assessor, $2,437. Maine Waste to Energy tipping fees, $5,231. Mandarin Library Automation, it's an annual subscription for the library, $1,050. Northeast Energy Apparatus, $1,804. Work Auto Group Ford Repairs, $2,237.61. That's Public Works. State of Maine Bureau of Motor Vehicles, $17,253. State of Maine IF&W, $32,980. You can tell it's voting season. For a total on warrant 26 of $808,804.34.
Is that all that pays for the Kennebec County?
Yes, we have to pay it all at once. Yeah.
Lot of money.
Yeah, it's up 37% this year. 203, almost 300. I mean, it's a lot of money. It went up. It's insane between that and the school. I mean, I mean, the school percentage didn't go up a lot, but here's a little thing for you. So, other government is 61% of the total taxes is the total expenditures that the town makes every year. Those are for the other governmental units that we pay. So the county, the schools, the water district, so on and so forth. Those expenses make 75% of the tax levy. So no matter whatever you do on the municipal side, it's only 25% of the tax bill that you pay because the municipality is the only one that has its own revenue that comes in to offset those expenses. So that's just that was kind of interesting. I was doing the math today. So it's you know, we're really at the mercy of what's going on in these other groups, especially now that the counties, my opinion, lost their minds. Androscoggin Bank, $15,570. That's one of the debt service payments. Another Androscoggin Bank, another debt service payment is $14,036. Blue Rock Earthworks Materials Transport for the transfer station, $5,852. CGIS Solutions, that's our GIS system, $1,200. Cobussy Watershed District, $19,677. Cobussy Lake Association, $4,600. Copies, et cetera, $3,780. Dennis K. Burke, conventional gas, $1,749. Dyer Soda Blasting, that's for the project next door, $8,200. Eco Main is our tipping fees for recycling, $1,928.87. Eline Financial Services, this is the town credit card, so it has all kinds of things for all different departments, small things that you buy on Amazon and so on and so forth. $1,787.56. Grimmel Industries, that's the demo for the transfer station, $6,062. iWork Total, this is our new online building permit software and the software that he uses to track our building permits. This is the installation cost, $6,500. AV Cog, $6,986. That's our annual membership. Kennebec Valley Humane Society, $1,835. Maine Technology Group, phones and IT support, $3,396. Monmouth Sanitary District, $1,705. Monmouth Water Association, $32,214. That's for the hydrants. Mocha Design, the banners, $2,648. RSU two, $549,308. Onion, Kernston and Roulette, that's one of the payments on the audit. We just got done, $7,200. Santander Bank, $24,958. That's a debt service payment. State of Maine, Bureau of Motor Vehicles, $15,039. Stevens Greenhouse total Stephen Farm and Greenhouse is $2,127. Oh, Uline, this is the equipment for the Compson Hall, like picnic tables and towel dispensers and things like that they use over there. $4,212.28. Vision Government Solutions, that's our assessing software for the year, $10,757. Bill Van Tynen, $1,200. He does the valuation of the CMP substation. And the Winthrop Police Department for dispatch, $68,037 for a grand total of $834,851.23.
Make a motion, we approve warrant 26 and 27 for fiscal year 23-24.
Second. A motion by Chris, second by Mark to approve the warrant 26 and 27 for fiscal year 23-24. All those in favor?
Thank you. Before we adjourn, question about EcoMaine. I think the last time we had a conversation with them, we'd asked to get us out of we'd asked you to send them a letter to get us out of our automatically renewing subscription thing. When does our subscription end?
I think it's 26.
Just renewed.
It just renewed right before you had that discussion. I think it's 26. It's like an automatic 3-year renewal.
Yeah, we got a long ways to go. But they are aware that we want.
Yes.
Yeah, so when it does come up in 26, they're aware we've made the notification that we may not renew. Won't renew automatically this time.
Okay. And maybe at some point, what could one of those compactor, $250,000 compactor trailers will kick the bucket, and then we'll be thinking like, do we want to spend the money on that again?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?